questions are answered and even more are raised in this week's episode of Miss Marvel. We come face to face with Kamala's actual great-grandmother, and we learn all about the origin of the Kree bangle and the mysterious Najma. I'm Chris Goodmakers, and I'm back this week to explore and break down the latest episode of the tale of this teenage superhero. Warning to all, here be spoilers. We got a lot more info right up front about the origin of Kamala's power-activating bangle, and it's time for a big old Chris was right party. Ooh, my favorite kind. The bangle is in fact a Kree Nega Band, even if that name hasn't been used yet. When the episode starts in 1942 British-occupied India, we see Najma and Kamala's great-grandmother. They find the bangle on a distinctive blue alien arm, like those that are usually attached to the Kree. There's a brief mention of needing two and that they should come in pairs. If you watched my last breakdown, you will remember me talking about the Nega Bands and their ability to unlock inherent powers and transport the user to the negative zone. Najma and her crew are seeking the second bangle for its ability to aid in interdimensional travel. Why? So it turns out that Najma and her crew of wedding crashers are interdimensional refugees. Or so they say. But we will come back to that very soon. When Najma takes Kamala back to her humble hideout, she explains that the group of them, plus Kamala's own great-grandmother, are actually from another universe or dimension. We already met a group very similar to this with the village of Ta Lo and Shang-Chi in the overly long subtitle. Emperor Giorgio explains that the residents of the Hidden Village were also forced into the Marvel Universe while running from the Mega Soul Sucker. It seems that there were quite a few groups that have been forced from their own worlds into that of the 19999 universe. That's right, it's not the 616. I stand with Aman Vellani, Kevin. While we're talking about Shang-Chi, let's take a quick look at his armbands. Is it possible that the 10 rings and Kamala's bangle share a connection? Both are arm-worn gold bracers that contain powerful magic. Between all 10, Shang-Chi even has a full pair. Is it possible that the rings were just a pair of Nega Bands cut into 10 equal slices? Maybe some ancient god took a magical bandsaw to their set of gauntlets. If so, then why do they seem to have their own contained power and not a different power based on the wearer? Perhaps it does unlock other powers, but there is a genetic component to power sets. Shang-Chi and his father are the only ones we have seen wearing them. The temple where Kamala's bracer is found even has an inscription on the floor of the 10 rings themselves. This was probably some kind of ancient Kree base. Perhaps even the place where the rings and bracers were forged? I'll leave those and other questions for my next conspiracy-filled video about MCU plotlines. In the meantime, I'm still on the lookout for Arcade, that red-haired mega genius. But what exactly do we call this group of interdimensional ruffians? Since it's the Marvel Universe, you bet it's a supremely dumb name. Comics never stop being the best. Najma refers to herself and her crew as the Clan Destines, which is a hot enough name. This is what they were referred to as in their home dimension. Pro tip, Kamala, it's never good when a group of unaging weirdos intentionally refer to themselves as secretive. Just ask the Eternals. They say they are from the Noor dimension and were forced to come to the MCU. Now they seek a way to return to their home. The reason they left is so far fairly vague. Najma talks as if they are refugees, forced to escape with just their lives. However, Yusuf mentions the word exile when talking to Bruno about the mythical Jinn. There's a big difference between being a refugee and being exiled. The latter usually means that there was a violation of some law or cultural norm, or a political exile because of a coup or upheaval. Given the group's behavior at the end of the episode, it's possible Najma is an MCU General Zod. I guess that makes Whip Guy non. A connection to a comic-based group may hold some answers for all of us viewers. The Clandestine sound like the MCU version of Clan Destine. Now I know it sounds like I just said the same name twice, but to explain the difference, just follow the bouncing ball. Clandestines? Clan Destine. The clan, known as Destine, are a group of super-powered individuals who are all the progeny of a single couple. Like an MCU family madrigal, the clan is descended from Adam Destine and Elaith, who is even a djinn like Najma. I'm sure I will explore this connection as the story continues, but for now it looks like this is the most direct connection. Najma may be a stand-in for Elaith, but there are more differences than similarities. Elaith is far kinder than Najma, and is far more bound by her role as a djinn. There's also the missing Clan Destine, whom Olathe married way back in the 12th century. There's a guy on Najma's crew named Adam with 2 A's, but these two hardly look married. Najma also refers to her group as the Unseen, who in the comics are beings capable of avoiding the gaze of the ever-present Watchers. Of course, she also says they were Jinn, ancient evil genies. For more information about Jinn, watch the Wishmaster series. You won't really learn anything, but you'll have a pretty good time. Now for some fun stuff. I haven't talked about them yet, but the series title card is an ever-changing collage of the name Miss Marvel. This episode features a few fun frames, including more of Kamala's Eric Henderson-inspired art. The first is a drawing of her favorite heroes, and this weird alien guy. He may be infant terrible, but he looks more like the Men in Black worms. There's also an adorable frame of a cartoon Kamala fawning over a very handsome Cameron. Hey, it turns out you two aren't related. So I would say go for it, Kamala. Except don't, because I ship Bruno and you. Speaking of Bruno, he drops a familiar name this episode. When he meets up with Kamala, the two discuss the recent revelations. Kamala asks Bruno if he in fact knows anything about multi-dimensional travel and the Noor dimension. Bruno then mentions he remembers a book by Dr. Eric Selvig. Selvig is of course the world-renowned physicist and intellectual giant who often enjoys running around Stonehenge buck naked. Okay, it was just the once, but let me ask you a question, dear viewers. Who did it better, Selvig or Birdman? Later, when Yusuf is at the Circle Q fulfilling his secret desire for hand pies, Bruno is seen reading from the book on his laptop. A half-cut-off line mentions the words wildest imagination and city in 2012, next to a diagram of a wormhole. It's referring to the attack in New York City during the events of the Avengers. Selvig had a first-hand look at the wormhole that the Space Stone opened and wrote about it here. Selvig kind of has a big I told you so coming because he was talking about dimensional incursion way back in Phase 2, before it was cool. Kamala is questioning a lot about herself in this episode. One of the biggest on her mind is if she actually is helping anyone with her powers, or just causing more trouble and putting her friends and family in danger. Her mother and father talk about her alter ego as if she is a menace, and damage control is hunting her like a criminal. When she's at her lowest, she receives some words of wisdom from her imam.
Good is not a thing you are, Kamala. It is a thing you do.
They're good words, Kamala, and you should know since you originally said them. Kamala expressed this sentiment in issue 5 of Miss Marvel, when after a talk with her father and Bruno, she rallies herself for a battle ahead. At the time, she was fighting cockatiel Thomas Edison, so she really needed to psych herself up. Let's talk about mission creep. It's when an organization slowly creeps its mandate more and more outward until it has more to do than it was originally built for. What was once an organization with a specific purpose is turned into a larger, more all-encompassing operation. It looks like damage control has been creeping, to paraphrase TLC. The government organization started simply as a series of units that collected and categorized dangerous objects after large battles. They also cleaned and restored the various buildings, reduced so much rubble by the Hulk. However, in the 6 or so in-universe years since their introduction in Spider-Man Homecoming, it looks like they have expanded into hunting and capturing superpowered criminals and upstart heroes. They are now employing Mysterio's old drones and using tactical squads equipped with science guns. Similar to the Cape Killers created during the first Marvel Civil War, these units are created to battle and take down unregulated heroes. Damage control has obviously stepped up to fill the void left by the now dismantled S.H.I.E.L.D. Somebody better check them for Hydra agents. It would explain the casual racism from Agent Deaver. How about we end on a fun movie reference? During the climax of the episode, Kamala attempts to escape falling into the clutches of Najma and her nefarious genies. She escapes into a large industrial kitchen of her brother's wedding venue. It's no good, however, as she quickly ends up being stalked through the stainless steel kitchen. It's a clear reference to Jurassic Park, with Najma and crew playing stand-in for a pair of velociraptors. A sudden noise even gives both parties away to their pursuers. Miss Marvel proves once again that industrial kitchens are a bad place. times, especially if Gordon Ramsay is around. We are now halfway through Miss Marvel with episode 3, and so far the series has been a genuine delight. Iman Vellani continues to be charming, funny, and endearing, and the show continues to be filled with fun animation and impactful moments. While this series hasn't been getting the ratings it deserves, Miss Marvel was always going to have an uphill battle. There's been a lot of MCU in the past few years, and some people are starting to feel the strain. I appreciate that more than anyone. But if there ever was a Marvel series to watch, it's this one. Miss Marvel returns next week as Kamala tries to find a way to get her grounded butt halfway across the world. And I also return. But until then, I have some sweet new dance moves to practice.